Hello, everyone. You ready? So, welcome, everyone, to the first session of the 10th edition of Excode. I am Lorenzo Sattashiris, and I will be your teacher for the next 6 weeks. And first, I would like to spend 2 words to congratulate yourself, because you are already 1 step ahead compared to the people that are not in this room. Look to your right. Now look to your left. These are all talented and motivated people that in a few weeks will learn coding, just like you. To talk about coding, a lot of people, unfortunately, see it as this, something that's only for nerds, people that study a lot. And other people, they see it as this, a lot of learning by heart of syntax. And unfortunately, a lot of other prejudices as well. Well, with Excode, we want to break that. We want to show that coding is for everyone. And that's why, for us, coding is fun. Maybe not that type of fun, this type of fun. It's fun because you're in a court, you're learning with other people. Also, it's beautiful. It's beautiful because you have that satisfaction when you solve coding problems, when you finally learn something new, go out of your comfort zone. And also, it's very powerful. Coding is powerful because coding controls the world. You control how people interact with everything digital. You may know some of these things. They've all been allowed through coding. If you see Instagram, computers, meetings, all the people online here, hope you hear me. Well, you're here thanks to coding. So now we've covered a little bit the why learn to code. I will talk about the what. So what is this Excode all about? What will you learn? First, I want to teach you what is an art, the art of computer programming, which means, yes, the syntax, Python, but also an algorithmic and analytical way of approaching problems and solving them. Because what makes someone a developer is his knowledge of concept, his way of approaching when there's a problem, of breaking it down, of approaching it from a certain angle. And that's what I want you to teach it. So then you can apply it to your life, to your studies, to have better grades, to have a better work opportunities, and finally, to have a better digital life. Obviously, you will learn Python, which is a beginner programming language, one of the easiest ones to learn. And also, I will focus on concepts a lot. I want you to have a grasp on how things work and why they work the way they do, so that then you can apply it. If in 5 years the technology changes, or for instance, you change field or job or programming language, I want you to be stronger rather than lost. That's why we will focus on concept during the lecture. Then also, obviously, during the workshop, 30 minutes of lecture, then 1 hour of workshop, you will actually apply these concepts. Then the how. How will you learn that? So first, as I said, it's concept first and from the ground up. I will start from complete beginners. This week is more a chill week to get to know each other and get to know your workshop leaders and understand how it works. And then we will actually do things that actually have an impact. For instance, during the next workshops, I would like you to be able to create a small video game or see a little bit how websites work. Maybe we'll do even an additional session on websites. And finally, there's also a teaching methodology. This has been implemented and tested based on a lot of research, probably hundreds of hours from me and also all the iteration of Excode based on videos, articles, blog, papers. And it's always trying to find a real-world analogy that you can relate to. So this idea is to find a connection with the programming concepts and then properties that you can apply from one to the other. Then we'll use a lot of diagrams and actual code to show you examples on how a concept can be helpful. And finally, obviously, getting your hands onto the thing. So exercises, that's how you will learn a lot. And also fun. It's the idea of community. I will try to do group activities where you have to come up with solutions in groups. Then towards about why me. I've been teaching coding for years and coding for years. I had a blog that is now closed. I had hundreds of thousands of readers. I also send newsletters to developers and work for companies to help them optimize their articles for developers. I had plenty of experiences. I've studied engineering, but I've also done websites, entrepreneurship projects. For instance, this is a car I built last year and I won a competition with it that will stop on different colors. This is a website that I built to show people my car. And they could go online and move around the car. That's also, for instance, a website I built that it was monetized to help other people take notes on web pages. These are all examples of things you can do with coding. For instance, when I sent an email to all of you, I had to write the ID manually. And I could send 800 emails, but what was easier was actually spending 30 minutes writing a script to have the email sent automatically to you with all the IDs, and it saves me days of sending emails. That's the power of coding. Now, the question everyone's been asking, how do I get my certificate? It's not that hard. There are two things you have to do. Attend at least 4 out of the 6 classes. I will then show how you can check in. I've built the platform. There have been some problems. If you cannot check in, you just send me a message, and I'll check in you manually. Now it should work. And also doing a simple exam at the end. It will be done at home. It will be quite simple. The idea is not really to assess, but more to help you improve. And so if you do and attend the lectures, the exam will be doable. So that then you can get this shining certificate with your name on it to show your CV and employers. And then Jeremy will talk about what past people that have got the certificate have done. Now I would like to show a little bit the platform. Now you should all be able to sign in. Are you able to sign in? So you have received an ID. If you go on there, you can put the ID here, log in. Yes, it will ask you for your full name. Put it because it's important because of the certificate. And then you are able to access the different weeks. For every week, you should have the recording, the slide deck, the lecture code, and the workshop code. And then you can check in. I will give you a check-in code at the end of every lecture. So you just put the check-in code here. I will give it to you later. And you mark it as complete this way. And when it's done, if it does not work, it's not a problem. This has been done, and I've coded it, so maybe it does not work. And if it does, we'll just count everyone attendance, and we'll do it like last year. Last year was simply done by emails. So you should also receive an email with the workshop code for today. If you are unable to access the platform, just enter the workshop code, and that should be fine. So just a recap sentence. Excode is for you to learn to think as developers while having fun. That's the mindset. Now we've a little bit introduced how it works. So I can do a quick recap. It's 30 minutes of lectures where I will introduce programming concepts, and then 1 hour of workshops. So all have via emails your workshop room. Workshop leaders will now come. They're CS students trained, and they will guide you after the lecture. Now we're going to start with the first lecture, which is called The Magic Behind the Screen. In this lecture, we'll cover some 4 main concepts, which are, you ready? 4. So 1, what is a programming language? 2, what is a computer program? 3, Python. And finally, thinking like developers. So what is a programming language? First of all, it is a language. So what do we have language for? It's for communication. It's to give information. The catch here is that it is a programming language. So we are not talking with humans, but with computers, even if some CS students would like it to be different. And so what happens is when we communicate with computers, yes, in human languages, we have grammar and syntax, and we have different types of words. But with computers, it needs to be way, way, way more strict, because you need to have a really clear set of shared rules that you share with this computer to then give this communication. And the type of communication we give in a programming language is called instructions, because we are asking the computer to do something for us. And these instructions are written in lines of code, which are the base unit of a programming language. So to recap, a programming language is a way to talk with our computer, to ask our computer to do things for us. For instance, here, if I want to talk with a computer and ask him to print something, which means display something, say something, tell him, print hello world. The computer is going to print, display on the screen hello world. That's one way. I can dissect that line of code for you and understand the different aspects that made it. For instance, first print is the instruction we give to our computer, and then hello world is what we want the computer to print. In this case, we could change hello world to basically anything. Hello, hi, and the computer will print that. We'll now talk about also comments and errors, but to do that, let's go to the code. So for every week, you also have a lecture code, which is the code that we'll go over during the lecture. I wrote some text to summarize a little bit how it works. And this is all done on Colab. Colab is amazing because Colab basically works with code and text blocks, and you can directly do everything on Colab. So when you enter a Colab, it's done with your Google account. You can just duplicate the one we will share with you, either by email or from the platform. And then you can write directly and work directly from here. But for the lecture code and the workshop code and the workshop solutions, everything is in Colab. As you can see here, this is, for instance, a text block, and this is a code block, where we can see our sentence, our line of code, print hello world. When I click this button, it is going to run the code, which means basically I take the code and I give it to my computer that will do something that's called execute. I mean, doing what's required from it. So when I click here, theoretically, it will take a little bit of time to load to connect it. Hello world. It displays hello world. I can change that and just say print hello. And here, magic, hello. So that's how it works. That's how Colab works. And you can basically write any type of code here in Python. To go further, there's also a lot of other programming languages. And the way I like to represent that with an analogy, it's like in human language. Posso dire la stessa frase, I can say the same sentence, in plenty of other languages. Si je parle français, if I speak French, for instance, I will still have the same meaning, but the words are going to be different. For instance, here I have in two different languages, JavaScript and Java, a way of saying hello world and printing hello world. They're written differently, but the same exact thing will happen if I run them. Unfortunately, Colab only works with Python, but in other types of tools to run code, we could use these other programming languages, which are other languages that have a really similar type of structure, but then we can apply them to different fields. Python is one of the most versatile. Then, as I told, we'd like to talk about comments. Comments are a way to put something in the code that is only for us humans to read. For instance, it is something that I want to share with someone else that will read the code to then modify it or work on it, but I do not want my computer to run it. If I run here a line with this is a comment, nothing is going to happen because the computer is simply going to ignore it. If I run these, print test and printer will not be printed, only test will appear. Sometimes during your workshop code, you will have comments to tell you what you should do on it. If I run this, actually, without the hashtag, because in Python, we use an hashtag to represent that something is a comment. Different programming languages have different symbols, so everything that is after an hashtag is ignored by the computer. If I run this without the hashtag, it's going to give me an error. And that's another important thing I'd like to talk about, errors. Errors are perfectly normal, and even really good programmers have errors in their code. And so what makes someone a good developer and also be able to code is not his ability not to do errors. No, it's his ability of solving the errors when they arrive. So that's why I will teach you how to solve those errors. When there's an error, and it will happen, it will always give you a name and a type of the error, a description, and tell you where it is. So I want you to look up at these three things. The type, so here it is a syntax error. Obviously, we broke the contract of the rules we should have established with the computer because we just put some English text. So there's a syntax error, and there is a description. The problem is that there is an invalid syntax, and it is here at this line of code. And then, obviously, there are workshop leaders for you to ask them. So why is there an error here? What happens? Can you please explain to me? They're here for that as well. You can also use Google, ChatGPT, and I've put under resources also something that's called Stack Overflow. Stack Overflow is really good because it is Quora for developers. So basically, people have asked questions and you have answers. It's probably like 100 million of those. No, yeah, like 24 million of those, something like that. Like an enormous amount of questions. And you can use it to find answers to common questions you may have in your code, a little bit more advanced in the future. There are plenty of other ways we could make an error. For instance, these are all types of errors we could make with print hello world. And it is all a question of rereading your code, trying to understand where you made that error. For instance, here it's a name error because we have misspelled print. Also, Python is case sensitive. So a capital P is not the same as a normal P. For instance, if I run this, it gives me an error. If I change it, and we can see here, Colab is kind with us because actually it changed the color of print when it's the right instruction. So it gives us a visual cue that we are doing things right. These are all tools that help developers be more efficient. Now, second point, what is a computer program? We talk about programming languages, but what makes a program? Well, in real life, a program is a set of activities that I write in order to achieve a specific goal. In computing, a program is a set of instructions, so lines of code, I write in order to achieve a specific task. So it's quite similar. So for instance, if I have a complex software, such as Instagram or the Excode app, these are all made of simpler programs, and I can break that down into simpler programs. So for instance, we can study some examples. So here it is a program to convert temperature in Celsius to temperature in Fahrenheit. If I do so, I'm talking with my computers and I'm asking, can you please, this is my temperature in Celsius, can you please convert it into a temperature in Fahrenheit? The computer is here, makes a math, and gives back to me the temperature in Fahrenheit. So this is the kind of communication we can have in a program. And the advice I would like to give to you is when you have a program, try to break it down into three things. The input, what comes in, the processing, what happens to the output, and the to the input, and the output, so what comes out of the program. Here, it is quite simple. The input is the temperature in Celsius from a computer point of view. The processing is multiplying it and adding 32, and the output is the temperature in Fahrenheit. We can expand that to plenty of other types of program. For instance, here, if we want to write something to immediately receive a notification on your phone when you receive an email, our input could be the email, so everything that comes with it, so the email title, the email body, the timestamp, which is when I have received that email. Then I do some complex processing, which could be a lot of code, and then the output here is sending a notification via your phone, so receiving that notification, or you have, for instance, the title and the email body, so you can look and click on it and open the email. You can also see it more as a system in place. So if we want to program a robot, such as my car, well, the input is a bit the sensors, and so everything, the data that my robot will take. So for instance, I have the speed, the direction. Then the processing could be the way I want to move the motor. So motors go at that speed, do that. And the output is the fact that the robot moves. So that's a little bit an input processing output. And we can see it more as a system. So try to understand what comes into my program, what happens to all these things, and then what comes out. Now, third point, Python. A little bit introduced it already, but Python is a really, really powerful language. It's been released, actually, it's not that recent, in early 90s, but it is one of the most close to the English language. Usually, when we talk about programming language, we have a scale. Up here, it's the English, and down here it is binary 0 and 1, the way a computer thinks. We have a lot of languages that are in this scale. Python is really up there. Not quite English, but quite close. If we have, for instance, JavaScript, Java, or C, they're all down there. So Python is one of the closest to English you can get. And often, if you have a problem with the Python syntax, which means I don't know, I know what I want to do, but I don't know how to do it. You have to use Google or ChatGPT or tools or talk with people that have done it to then learn the syntax. And so usually we divide things into two tasks. So one is to figure out what needs to be done, so what codes need to be done. And then once I have an idea, which is maybe even conceptual, just writing, I have huge boards in my bedroom with all conceptual programs. I actually take my computer and write the code and write the lines of code with the syntax. So my goal here with this first session in the workshop is not really to go into the deep of Python, but more try to have this thinking of how developers think, how we abstractly, without code, think of how to make a problem, how to solve a problem with a program, and how to make a program. The best way to learn Python is probably exercises. So obviously there's the workshops that will try to do that, but then it's also on your own. If you have something that passionates you, just say, oh, I want to code it. If you want to do a tournament, for instance, code an algorithm that will automatically make the different participants and optimize the way they play together. If you want to send emails, you can write a program to automatically send emails. And then it can be applied to other fields. In research, if you have to write a paper, programming can be extremely useful. I use programming myself to extract data on the web. If you have to read 1,000 web pages, it's going to take years. If you have a program do it for you and then extract the information, it's going to take 10 minutes. Finally, the last point of today, thinking like developers. And what I wanted to do with this one is I'm not going to tell you actually. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have you figure it out how to think like developers. And to do that, I'm going to have some problems in the workshop that you will then face. And the only way to solve those problems is to apply a developer type of thinking. And I break it down into two types of thinking, abstraction and decomposition. You're going to have, during the workshop in groups, some problems, and you're going to have to solve them by using abstraction and decomposition, so that then you can understand what it is and how we use it. Usually, a developer is also, the way I see it, is also compared to a chef. So a chef is obviously responsible for cooking the dishes, but is also responsible for the name and the brand of the restaurant. He's responsible for innovating and finding new types of dishes. A chef is responsible for working with the staff and working with the customers. So a developer, for me, is someone who is responsible of the code, yes, writing some code, but on a broader scale, the idea and what you should aim for is to kind of see a problem, look at it, how can I solve it, try to experiment, what's the best way of solving it, what errors could come. And there's also all the field of debugging, which I was talking about before, which how do I figure out why is there a problem, how can I solve it? So as a quick recap, every week, if you go at the end of the lecture code, I wrote a little bit of recap of the session, so you can go on your own and see it. I'll do it now. So there are 4 points we saw. Programming language, which is a way of communicating with a computer. A program, which is a set of instruction, usually divided into an input, a processing, and an output. Then Python, which is one of the best and most versatile programming language. And finally, also the developer mindset, which we will further later during the workshop. So thank you all for being here. If you want to check in on the platform, I hope it works now, you can put this code, EX1FJ. You put the code, it's going to ask you for some feedback. Take 1 second, it's going to take 1 second to fill it in. If it does not work, send me a message on WhatsApp and I'll just figure that out. Don't worry, I'll put you as checked in. Okay, perfect. Now I would like to introduce Jeremy, which has really helped and has done Excode last year. And he's the president of the Google Developer Student Club. And we'll talk about a little bit the society.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone, for showing up. Thank you, Lorenzo, for that. So yeah, welcome to Excode, guys. Huge turnout today. It's great to see everyone here right now. And I have been looking at the emails. I know a few of you have issues both online and in person. You know, if you don't have the ID to log into the platform, don't worry too much about it. Also, it's not your student ID. It would be in like an initial email that you received with all the stuff about Excode, saying kind of welcome to Excode. But if you don't have it, don't worry about it too much. Really, there's no stress. We're very understanding of everyone's like situation. So if there's something that goes wrong, don't stress too much about it. Just focus on the lecture, focus on the workshop, and just shoot us a message afterwards. So yeah, as Lorenzo said, I ran this last year, and he's already done a way better job than I did last year, so that's great to see. But what I will give you guys is a bit of insight on basically last year. Luckily, we were able to certify almost 400 people last year with an Excode certificate, because they showed up most weeks. You know, they did their workshops, they engaged, they did the exam at the end. Very easy exam, by the way. And then like one-on-one, they come to me, they say, thank you. You know, we put it on our LinkedIn, we put it on our CV, we mention it at interviews all the time that we learn a programming language, right? And it's very daunting, right? There's a million things, a million different things to learn. But when it comes to Python and what we ask from you, it really goes line by line. If you can understand what each line does, and the language Python is very similar to English, so even now it should be okay. But it's not that bad. So even if at any point you feel overwhelmed, don't worry too much about it. Okay, just talk to your workshop leader, talk to Lorenzo, and yeah. And I hope, right? And I hope that come the next few weeks, it'll become part of your habit to show up here. And I promise you that after 6 weeks, it'll be definitely worth it. And I'm really looking forward to seeing all you guys next week and the week after. So yeah, just all you need to do is show up, listen, and yeah, that's it. Thank you, Lorenzo. So
yeah, and enjoy the ride. So now we are gonna break. Can I have this? Oh. So basically now.